Hey everybody, this is Death by D4, and welcome to my Warlock subclass tier ranking for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. There's a lot to go over, so be sure to subscribe and let's dive right in. And for those of you interested in a breakdown of my tier ranking, feel free to pause the video and read through the following information. Starting off in alphabetical order, we've got the Archfey, which finds itself down in Silver tier. The Archfey plays itself off as a battle master manipulator, with a few notable features intended to help keep itself out of harm's way. However, despite how useful some of its features can be, most of them are tied to a brief, single-use short rest recharge, resulting in them being very infrequently used. Admittedly, the Archfey does have an alright expanded spell list, not to mention that all of its features still have their uses. But with how limited their uses actually are, you'd probably just have a lot more fun if you played something else entirely. Next up, we've got the Celestial, which finds itself all the way up in Platinum tier. The Celestial plays itself off as a blaster support mage, with a number of notable features intended to aid itself and its allies while dealing damage. Its expanded spell list is a definite highlight, offering Warlocks access to both Cure Wounds and Guiding Bolt right away at first level, and those spells scale very well when you upcast them with your Warlock spell slot. Couple that with its distributable healing resource, a reasonable boost to the damage of its fire and radiant spells, a short rest group shielding, and its blinding AoE Death Defiance, and you've got a whole bunch of useful abilities that will likely remain relevant throughout all levels of play. Easily one of the best Warlock subclasses out there, and one that I highly recommend giving a try. Next up we've got the Fathomless, which finds itself up in Gold tier. The Fathomless plays itself as an area of effect crowd controller, with a few notable features intended to help offer some added utility. Its expanded spell list has some very notable additions, not to mention its Tentacle of the Deep feature acts as both a means of bolstering its attacks, alongside slowing its enemies. Guardian Coil helps protect those standing near its Tentacle of the Deep, and with Grasping Tentacles, it gains a powerful zoning spell to further damage and lock down its enemies. That said, it's worth mentioning that the Fathomless does lose out a bit on some of its features that specifically play into a more nautical setting. However, even in spite of this, not to mention if you couple it with all of the appropriate Eldritch invocations, these features in no way debilitate it in any meaningful way. Definitely a very solid Warlock subclass overall, and one that could even be considered Platinum given the proper campaign setting. Next up, we've got the Fiend, which finds itself way up in Platinum tier. The Fiend plays itself as a blaster mage that excels at dealing damage during combat. Its expanded spell list is a definite highlight, offering Warlocks access to a wonderful array of fire-damaging spells. Couple that with its on-kill shield, its ability to briefly bolster an ability check or saving throw, its interchangeable damage resistance, and its powerful Hurl Through Hell feature, and you've got yourself a Warlock that's ready to take on almost any combat encounter. Easily one of the best Warlock subclasses out there, and one that I highly recommend giving a try. Next up, we've got the Genie, which finds itself way up in Platinum tier. The Genie plays itself most like a magical generalist, but comes packed with a number of exceptionally notable features that play extremely well into being a Warlock. Its expanded spell list varies wildly depending on the chosen Genie patron. However, the universal addition of Wish at higher levels shouldn't be understated, as that's an incredibly powerful spell for you to gain access to as a Warlock. Couple that with its multiple charges of concentration-free flight, the ability to provide itself and its allies a means of taking a quick short rest, and the incredibly versatile limited wish feature, and you've got yourself a Warlock that can stand up in almost any situation it may come across. Arguably one of the best Warlock subclasses in the entire game, and one that I would highly recommend giving a try. Next up we've got the Great Old One, which finds itself way down in Copper tier. Similar to the Archfey, the Great Old One plays itself as a battlefield manipulator. Unfortunately though, its features aren't quite as effective, and that's really saying something coming off of the Archfey. Admittedly, its expanded spell list does offer some notable additions. However, when you look past that, most of its features are either incredibly niche, or just fail to achieve anything of noteworthy value. And take it from me as somebody who's played as a Great Old One Warlock for a while, my change in patron to the Fiend was most certainly worth it. Easily one of the worst Warlock subclasses out there, and one that I would highly recommend staying away from as long as possible. Next up we've got the Hexblade, which finds itself way up in Platinum tier. The Hexblade plays itself off as a combative juggernaut that excels at dealing damage during combat. Its expanded spell list is a definite highlight, offering Warlocks both access to a number of defensive spells alongside a few of the Paladin smites. Couple that with literally every other feature that it gets, and you've got yourself a Warlock fit for almost every encounter imaginable. That said, it should be noted that a Hexblade who doesn't play into the Pact of the Blade, or its appropriate Eldritch invocations, will notice a significant reduction in its power overall. So despite the fact that the more traditional Warlock can still work with this subclass, it's just highly recommended that you actually don't do that. All in all, definitely one of the best Warlock subclasses in the entire game, and one that I would highly recommend giving a try. Next up we've got the Undead, which finds itself up in Gold tier. The Undead plays itself off as a blaster mage with some slight utility in and out of combat. Its expanded spell list does have some notable additions, though nothing too defining for the class in general. However, where the subclass truly shines is with its Form of Dread feature, where it bolsters itself with temporary hit points and gains the ability to frighten its enemies. Couple that with its additional features at higher levels that offer more benefits to its Form of Dread, and you got yourself a Warlock that's set to scale very well throughout all levels of play. That said, it isn't the most powerful Warlock subclass in terms of raw damage, but it's still a very solid subclass overall and grows quite well over the course of a campaign. Easily one of my favorite Warlock subclasses to date, and one that I would definitely recommend giving a try. And finally, we've got the Undying, which finds itself way down in Copper tier. With all due respect, the Undying plays itself off as a Warlock that doesn't actually have a subclass. Yes, that's how genuinely inconsequential all of its features actually are. Its expanded spell list is blatantly pathetic. All of its features are highly ineffective, and out of all the available Warlock subclasses, I just can't imagine why you would ever want to play as this one. I mean, it's just that bad. And for those of you interested in a more thorough breakdown of why the subclass is so bad, just click the card in the top right to see my guide video discussing it. Definitely one of the worst subclasses in all of 5th edition, and one that I would highly recommend never ever playing. And that's it. If you liked the video, then be sure to subscribe and let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you'd like to have the chance to play D&D with me, then feel free to join my Discord server, and consider supporting me over on Patreon. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see all of you in the next video.